62. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
And welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. A federal judge on Tuesday ordered the United States military to immediately stop enforcing the 17-year-old Don't Ask, Don't Tell law that prohibits openly gay men and women from serving in the military. Judge Virginia A. Phillips of the Federal District Court for the Central District of California issued an injunction 1 month after she ruled that Don't Ask, Don't Tell law is unconstitutional. Tuesday's ruling bans enforcement of the law and orders the military to immediately suspend any investigations or discharge proceedings. The decision is likely to be appealed by the Department of Justice, but White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs said the injunction is under review and reiterated that President Obama will, quote, continue to work as hard as he can to change the law that he believes is fundamentally unfair.
Many gay rights groups have welcomed the ruling, but the decision comes at a grim time for gay rights advocates. 10 men have been arraigned, 2 of them just last night, on hate crimes charges here in New York, after they allegedly brutally beat and tortured 3 men because of their sexual orientation. September and October have also witnessed a rash of suicides by gay teenagers across the country. In the past 5 weeks, at least 7 gay and lesbian teenagers have committed suicide, in many cases following incidents of bullying or public humiliation by classmates. For more on all of these stories, we're joined here in New York by Richard Kim, senior editor at The Nation magazine. His latest blog post is called Against Bullying or Unloving Queer Kids. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Richard.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Juan.
Well, let us begin with Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Explain the significance of yesterday's ruling.
So, the log cabin Republicans were the people who brought forward this case, and they're actually urging people in the military to not come out yet because there might be an appeal. But what you saw here is really the party of no, the Republican Party is really the party of homophobia. When Obama came to office, he campaigned in part on getting rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He put in place a review in the military, legislation in the last defense appropriations bill that would have gotten rid of it. Senator John McCain filibustered it, and not one Republican member of the Senate moved over to the Democratic side to break the filibuster. So what you're seeing here is really the courts being the avenue of last recourse, and the Obama administration and Democrats in Congress wanting to do this legislatively. They were stopped by the filibuster, and the courts consistently, whether it's on issues of marriage or Don't Ask, Don't Tell or employment, have been really the avenue of last recourse because there's been no legislative progress on this.
But now the administration is in the difficult position now of having to decide whether to appeal a ruling that, in essence, a law that it has said it opposes.
Right, and that's the same situation that it faces in the Defense of Marriage Act. Obama has said that he doesn't agree with that legislation. That's being challenged by the state of Massachusetts and a bunch of gay rights groups. So, it's in this position where is it going to defend these just on federal prerogative? Is it just going to assert, it's the federal government, it has the right to determine law, or is it going to do what is right? And this is really important moving into the next Congress, because any chance we had of reversing Don't Ask, Don't Tell or DOMA legislatively is going to go from, small to zero. And so the courts really are the only avenue here, and the Justice Department, the Obama administration can take a different position and say we are not going to appeal these decisions. We agree with them. They've already said they agree with them, and they should do the right thing at this moment and really, let justice take its course.
As of yesterday, does this mean that no one can be kicked out of the military?
At the moment, there's an injunction, and no one can be kicked out of the military. There will be an appeal of that injunction, and it's unclear what happens with that process.
I want to go to this horrific torture session that happened over the weekend, this terrible attack on 3 young men. Can you describe what happened in the Bronx?
So there were 2 17-year-olds and 1 30-year-old, and they, in varying times, were picked up by this gang of youths, tortured and sodomized, forced to drink, really brutalized over the course of many, many hours.
And forced to torture each other.
Forced to torture each other, burn each other with cigarettes. Really, really horrific crime. The police made a first set of arrests over the weekend, and that was when Carl Palladino, the Republican candidate for governor, chose to make his remarks basically saying that gay and lesbians are inferior people.
Wait, actually, let's go right to his remarks.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to do this quite yet, but the Republican gubernatorial candidate here in New York told a group of Hasidic Jewish leaders on Sunday that children should not be brainwashed into thinking homosexuality is acceptable.
I didn't march in a gay parade this year, the gay pride parade this year. My opponent did. And that's not the example that we should be showing our children, and certainly not in our schools. And don't misquote me as wanting to hurt homosexual people in any way. That would be a dastardly lie. My approach is live and let live. I just think my children and your children will be much better off and much more successful getting married and raising a family. And I don't want them to be brainwashed into thinking that homosexuality is an equally valid or successful option. It isn't.
That was Carl Palladino speaking to a group of Hasidic leaders on over the weekend. This is him then on Monday appearing on ABC's Good Morning America defending his comments.
I'm not a homophobic. I have no reservations whatsoever about gays, only except for marriage. You know, Andrew Cuomo said he took his children to a gay pride parade. I was at one in Toronto one time. We stumbled on it, my wife and I. It wasn't pretty. It was a bunch of very extreme type people in bikini type outfits grinding at each other and doing these gyrations, and I certainly wouldn't let my young children see that.
This is very interesting. The Buffalo billionaire businessman attacking gay men and lesbians because, one, in your newspaper, the New York Daily News, the piece reads, Carl Palladino says kids shouldn't be brainwashed into thinking it's okay to be gay or to be taken to a disgusting gay pride parade. But he had no problem when his son William ran Cobalt, a nightclub once dubbed Buffalo's gay club of the moment. And he had no problem cashing in the rent checks from Cobalt and another gay club called Buddies 2, both of which were located for years in buildings that he owned. Richard Kim.
So, you know, this just reveals the utter hypocrisy of Carl Palladino. Gays are really okay when they're contributing to his coffers and making a lot of money for him. When it's time to court the Hasidic vote, he panders to really the worst kind of homophobia. The comments he made don't necessarily have a policy implication, but it's much broader than that. It engages in the systematic dehumanization of gay and lesbian people. And that's absolutely related to the attacks that happened in the Bronx and to the incidents of anti-gay bullying that we're seeing across the country. You know, I think he's really revealed himself, in addition to the racist emails he sent, as quite a crude, hateful politician.
Well, in addition, he also blasted his Democratic rival, Andrew Cuomo, for taking his daughters to a gay pride parade, saying, would you take your children to a gay pride parade?
You know, there are tons of children at the gay pride parade in New York. You see politicians marching in it all the time. And, you know, Carl Palladino has apologized in part for his remarks, and I would hope he comes to the next year's gay pride parade in whatever capacity, hopefully as a private citizen, and, you know, sees what it's really about.
Go ahead.
You've written in The Nation about, we talked about this rash of teen suicides as a result of bullying by classmates, and you've talked in a Nation piece about your own experiences in terms of bullying and how the impact on gay teenagers across the country of this epidemic, really, that rarely gets much attention.
Right. So we now, latest numbers say that as many as 13 gay and lesbian or trans teens have killed themselves since September. And the scary part is this may not even be an uptake. This may actually be the norm, and we just don't have very good tracking on this. You know, that includes Aisha Hassan, a lesbian who killed herself, a Howard student, Zach Harrington, who was just 19, who killed himself after he attended a town hall meeting in Norman, Oklahoma, where people were debating whether there should be a Gay and Lesbian History Month, and people used the word perversion, sick, deranged at that meeting, and he took his life shortly thereafter. So what you are really seeing here is the human consequences of politics.